To order. Today's Pledge of Allegiance is by Isabella Robles from Arrupe Jesuit High School in Denver, Colorado.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Representatives Arndt, Becker J, Becker K, K. Becker,
Excused.
Beckman, Benavides, Bridges, Buck, Buckner, Buckner,
Excused.
Carver, Catlin, Coleman, Covarrubias, Danielson, Escar, Escar,
Excused.
Everett, Everett,
Excused.
Exum, Foot, Garnett, Janal, Gray, Hamner, Hamner,
Excused.
Hanson, Herod. Hooten. Humphrey. Jackson. Kennedy. Kraft-Tharp. Landgraf. Lawrence. Lee. Leonard. Lewis. Liston. Lontine. Lundeen. McKean. McLaughlin. Melton. Michelson Janae. Neville. Pabon. Pabon.
Excuse.
Pedersen. Pedersen.
Excused.
Representative Escar is present. Rankin. Ransom. Ryer. Roberts. Rosenthal. Sane. Salazar. Sandridge. Sias. Singer. Thurlow. Valdez. Van Winkle. Representative Buckner is present. Van Winkle.
Excuse.
Weissman. Willett. Williams. Representative Van Winkle is present. Wilson. Winkler. Winter. Wist. Young. Madam Speaker.
Here.
So I've got Becker K, Everett, Hamner, Pabon, and Pedersen.
With 60 present and 5 excused, we do have a quorum. Representative Covarrubias.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of the Journal of Monday, April 9th, 2018 be dispensed with and approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
All right, members, you have heard the motion. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying no. The motion passes. All right, announcements and introductions. Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I have a tribute this morning.
Oh, great. Members, can we please have your attention? We have an important tribute this morning.
Thank you, members, and with your permission, I would like to ask Mr. Randall to read the tribute at length.
The House of Representatives, convened in the 71st General Assembly, hereby extends sincere commendations to National Healthcare Decisions Day. National Healthcare Decisions Day in Colorado exists to inspire, educate, and empower the public and providers about the importance of advanced healthcare planning. National Healthcare Decisions Day is an initiative to encourage patients to express their wishes regarding their healthcare and for providers and facilities to respect those wishes, whatever they may be. The goals of National Healthcare Decisions Day are to demystify healthcare decision-making and normalize the topic of advanced healthcare planning. Today and all days, this day works to create conversations around advanced healthcare planning that start at the kitchen table rather than in the ICU, hospice, or the funeral home. The members of the Colorado House of Representatives are proud to recognize National Healthcare Decisions Day. On request of Representative Daphna Michelson-Janae, given this 10th day of April 2018, State Capitol in Denver.
Thank you, Mr. Randall, and thank you, members. Please do be seated. For those of us who have been through any kind of a medical procedure in our lifetime or who've had a loved one who has gone in for a surgery, however minor or major, you're always asked that question of, did you leave a living will, or have you completed any documentation, or who is your power of attorney, or simply who's going to drive you home today? And sometimes these decisions happen at a time when you are overwhelmed or distressed or afraid. And it's much harder to have these conversations at that time. And this group has come together under the guidance of Kelly O'Connor and Jamie Sarche to spread the word that it is time for us to make decisions in advance, where we might be able to sit down calmly, as the tribute said, at the kitchen table and determine what do we want to do and who's going to make the decisions and what happens in case of an emergency. How many of you did fire drills in your home? I know that was a thing when I was growing up, stop, drop, and roll. We knew exactly what it was we were supposed to do and how we were to get out of the house. But who sat down and made the decision about how do we take care of each other in an emergency? And so I want to thank Kelly and Jamie for bringing this group together. And I know that through your work, the health of Colorado will be stronger. So members, if we could give them a round of applause for their work, I would greatly appreciate it.
And thank you for your service to the state of Colorado. Further announcements or introductions this morning?
I missed my window.
Any announcements or introductions? Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For the Judiciary Committee, House Bill 1303, Representative Wist and Garnett on youth sports will not be heard this afternoon. The youth sports bill is off the calendar.
Further announcements or introductions? Representative Lundeen.
Thank you. Members, it is my pleasure to introduce some folks who are with us here today. The Classical Academy, which is a charter school down in Colorado Springs, third largest charter school in the state, has 30 of its students here. Why don't you folks all stand up? There's some over here, there's some up here. They are members of the AP government class. They're here with their instructor, Bob Frick. So let's give them a round of applause, and then I'll tell you some more about them. So there was an especially broad smile just now. It came from the beautiful redhead. That's my niece, Rebecca. So she's a relative. I can get away with that, right? So thanks for the big smile. TCA is ranked 10th in Colorado for college readiness by U.S. News and World Report. These folks do a great job. They are ranked 368 in the nation in terms of charter schools, so they are spectacular in that sense, and they are in big demand. The Classical Academy has over 3,000 students, but there are 5,400 students on the wait list, which gives you some sense of the desire to get into this wonderful program. So thanks for being here, students from TCA.
Further announcements or introductions? Representative Eskar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of CDC, all two of you, are you listening? Just wanted to remind you that Thursday's meeting has been rescheduled. We won't be meeting Thursday morning.
Representative Kennedy.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Members, it is House District 23 Day at the Capitol today. I don't know if you all got word, but I have a number of constituents here who've come in to visit us from Lakewood. If you'd all stand, and please everyone help me welcome citizens of House District 23.
Further announcements or introductions that it will be a $1 fine, Representative Kennedy. But welcome to the Capitol. Representative Jadal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Health Insurance and Environment Committee will meet upon adjournment. We have two bills, 1302 and 1313. So we'll see you down in room 107 upon adjournment this morning. Thank you.
Further announcements or introductions, Representative Everett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I request to be excused on Friday. I've gotten approved by Majority Leader Becker and Minority Leader Neville.
Okay, you will be excused. Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to
My pleasure,
ask
Representative Catlin.
I'd like to ask for this Friday to be excused from the House of Representatives, and also next Tuesday and Wednesday, as I need to attend the Colorado River Water Conservation District Board of Directors meeting. I do have all of the papers signed, and I've asked for approval for those 3 days off.
Okay, you will be excused.
Thank you very much.
Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We just wanted to remind everyone, because I know you're all really paying attention,
let me help you out. Hold on one second. Members, it is getting very loud in here. We have announcements and introductions. Representative Lawrence and Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to remind everyone that Wednesday from 12 to 1 in room 109 is the Victims' Rights Caucus luncheon.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this is going to be an interesting one, and it is the last one. Our discussion is going to focus on survivor-led grassroots approaches to improving school safety. It is, we're going to hear from some folks who created a project called the I Love You Guys Foundation, and it is to restore and protect the joy of youth through educational programs and positive actions in collaboration with families, schools, communities, organizations, and of course government entities. And we do hope that you all will join us.
Further announcements or introductions? Representative Landgraf.
Members, something we've known for years and years and years, and you should know too. Colorado Springs is the second best place to live in the United States. It has surpassed Denver.
Yes.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, today we are pleased to announce, this is our good news report today, that Colorado Springs has been selected by U.S. News and World Report as the second best city in the United States to live. It's moved up 9 places, just behind Austin, Texas. I'm sure we'll catch them next year, but so we're very proud of Colorado Springs. It is a great place to live, whether it's first, second, third, or 10th, but this year it is second, and we're very happy to announce that. I'll turn it over to my colleagues.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and we already knew that Colorado Springs was actually #1, but the reason they were selected is because they passed 2 tax increases in Colorado Springs to pay for citizens' investment in roads and stormwater projects. We took it on and accepted responsibility for our own fate and invested in our own community. So that's why Colorado Springs moved up in the rankings, because we invest in ourselves.
Power to the people. Let the people vote. Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. with that said, it's hard to follow the tax increases. I think it's because the climate, the beautiful mountains, the great people, maybe some of the leadership is why, and maybe the great students and great schools is why Colorado was selected as number 2. If you haven't been to Colorado Springs, or Colorado Springs selected as number 2, if you haven't been there for a little while, come out and visit. It is expanding. There are so many more new businesses, restaurants. So like I said, if you haven't been there, come out and visit. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised about the growth. Thank you.
Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's no surprise to those of us that live in Colorado Springs what a wonderful place it is, great quality of life, huge number of parks, 200 plus miles of bike trails and walking trails, a gorgeous place. And I do have to say to my good friend, Representative Lee, that the key to success for Colorado Springs and El Paso County is we tell the voters, first of all, we take issues to the voters even when technically there's an argument whether we need to do that. We go to the voters, we tell them exactly what we're going to spend the money on, we keep the administrative costs incredibly low, and then we keep our word. And we are totally transparent in how we do it. And that, folks, is why there is such a robust civic community engaged with their local government on all these issues. Thank you.
All right, further discussion. Representative Exum.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Colorado Springs has the best fire department in the country, too.
Can't forget that. All right, thank you, members. Further announcements or introductions? Anybody? Representative Hamner and Representative Escar.
Good morning, Madam Speaker and colleagues. We would like to welcome the Family Resource Center Association, Family Center directors, staff, and families that are visiting here at the Capitol today. I think some of them are right up here saying hello. I know we have some folks from the Family and Intercultural Family Resource Center in Summit County here, and we just wanted to welcome you and hope you have a great day at the Capitol.
Welcome to the Capitol, Representative Escar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I just want to give a special shout out to the folks I got to chat with this morning from Catholic Charities in Pueblo. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to your house.
Thank you.
All right. Further announcements or introductions? Representative Jay Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess I appreciate that you can recognize me finally. I thought I was invisible for a while. But since everybody was talking about it, you know, Eastern Colorado is always in the top 10 most livable places in Colorado. And we probably have the top 15 or 20 fire departments there as well. So just to add that on. But Madam Speaker, I'd like to be asked to be excused on Friday due to the State Assembly. I have got the majority leader and the minority leader to sign off on that. Yeah.
Okay. You are excused. Oh, I'm hearing no's. There may be objection to that. Should we take a vote on that? Okay. Maybe not. Representative Janal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Along with the Family Resource Center Association that's here today visiting us, we would like to welcome Larimer County's the Family Center, or La Familia, from Fort Collins. So I want to welcome some folks up there in the gallery if they're here.
Here they are.
Welcome, La Familia.
Thanks for coming.
All right, further announcements or introductions? Further announcements or introductions? Going once, going twice. Representative Buck. And Representative Janal and Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And we have not seen them yet in the chambers, but they are just an incredible school that we have in the Fort Collins area? 52. District 52. So I will let Representative Janal say something.
Representative Janal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to welcome Liberty Commons School here today, one of the top-ranked charter schools in the nation, I believe.
In the country, yes.
So thank you. Welcome. If you're not here yet, hopefully you will be here soon. Thank you.
All right. Further announcements or introductions? Going once, going twice. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I just want to remind you on Friday at noon, we are going to have a little celebration for the 3 people currently in this chamber who are going to be welcoming babies this summer. So please come by for cake and snacks. And that's it.
All right. Further announcements or introductions? Seeing no further announcements or introductions, Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to suspend the rules for immediate consideration of HJR 1017.
I didn't know it was the number.
And so, just move it and then explain that we're having members read the resolution.
Sure. Okay.
And that you're starting.
All right. And she said the number. I didn't know what she was talking about.
I hear you. I said for immediate consideration, so we it doesn't matter.
Just got to go line up.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you. I move to proceed out of order for House Joint Resolution 1017.
All right, seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for HJR 1017. Mr. Randall, please read the title of HJR 1017.
House Joint Resolution 1017 by Representatives Benavides and Winter, all Senators Donovan and Moreno, concerning the designation of April 10th, 2018 as Equal Pay Day in Colorado, and in connection therewith acknowledging the persistent problem of wage disparity among various groups.
Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we would like to have myself and other members read the resolution and ask other members to sit if they would like, because it might be kind of lengthy. So you don't have to stand up.
Okay.
And
members, you can be seated. And we do have a very important resolution to hear this morning, and it is quite loud in here. And it sounds like different members will read the resolution, starting with Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think I also need to move HJR 1017.
Yes, please do.
I move HJR 1017.
All right, properly moved.
House Joint Resolution 1017 concerning the designation of April 10th, 2018 as Equal Pay Day in Colorado and, in connection therewith, acknowledging the persistent problem of wage disparity among various groups.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you. Whereas 55 years after the passage of the Equal Pay Act of 1963 and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, women, particularly women of color, continue to suffer the consequences of being paid less than men for doing the same work. And
Representative Krafthart.
Thank you. Whereas in 2009, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act was signed into law, which gives back to employees their day in court to challenge a pay gap. And whereas now we must pass the Paycheck Fairness Act, which would amend the Equal Pay Act by closing loopholes and improving the law's effectiveness And
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Whereas according to a report released by the Colorado Women's Foundation and the Institute for Women's Policy Research in 2018, Colorado women earned just 86 cents on the dollar compared to their male counterparts.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And whereas, based on its 2018 research, the Institute for Women's Policy Research estimated that women in Colorado will not receive equal pay until 2057 if progress continues at the same rate it has since 1960. And whereas the wage gap is not only discernible by sex, but also by race and ethnicity.
Madam Speaker Pro Tem Danielson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas a lifetime of lower pay means women have less income to save for retirement and less income counted in a Social Security or pension benefit formula. And
Representative Bridges.
Whereas fair pay equity policies can be implemented simply and without undue costs or hardship in both the public and private sectors. And
Representative Buckner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas, when comparing the earnings of women of each racial and ethnic group with the earnings of white men, white women in Colorado face the smallest gap, earning 78 cents for every dollar earned by the average white man, followed by Asian Pacific Islander women at 70 cents, African American women at 63 cents, Native American women at 53 cents, and Latina women at only 54 cents. And
Representative Janal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas earnings for both female and male full-time workers tend to increase with age, though earnings increase more slowly after age 45 and even decrease after age 55, the gender pay gap also grows with age, and differences among older workers are considerably larger than differences among younger workers. In 2016, for full-time workers ages 20 through 24, women were paid 96% of what men were paid on a weekly basis. As workers grow older and progress in their careers, median earnings for women grow more slowly than median earnings for men. From ages 25 to 54, women are typically paid 78 to 89% of what men are paid, depending upon age. And by the time workers reach ages 55 to 64, women are paid only 74% of what men are paid. And
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas, based on today's wage gap, over the course of a 40-year career, white women would lose $403,440. Black women would lose $867,920, and Latinas would lose $1,056,120. And whereas there exists a strong business and public interest case for equal pay for equal work. And
Representative Escar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas closing the pay gap between men and women strengthens the security of families today and eases future retirement costs while enhancing the American economy by circulating an additional $482 billion from increased wages. And
Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas equal pay would cut the poverty rate for working women in half, almost 3 million women out of poverty. And whereas on Tuesday, April 10th, 2018 symbolizes the time in the new year in which the wages paid to American women catch up to the wages paid to men from the previous year for the same work. Now, therefore,
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 71st General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that we, the members of the Colorado General Assembly, proclaim Tuesday, April 10th, 2018, to be Equal Pay Day in the state of Colorado, and urge governmental agencies, nonprofit and labor organizations, businesses, and individuals to take steps to implement equal pay policies to help close the pay gap Colorado's women and minorities.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be it further resolved that a copy of this joint resolution be sent to President Donald J. Trump, Colorado Governor John W. Hickenlooper, Colorado Lieutenant Governor Donna Lynn, the members of Colorado's congressional delegation, the United States Secretary of Labor R. Alexander Acosta, and Colorado Department of Labor and Employment Executive Director Sam Walker.
Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, thank you for helping us read the resolution at length. We were not quite as speedy as Mr. Randall, but and of course, feel free for anyone that wants to speak on this resolution to come forward. This resolution is important to me because every single night I put my children to bed and I read them bedtime stories and talk to them about their future and what they can do. But I have one son and I have one daughter, and every night when I tell them that they can be anything, they can achieve anything, and they can go anywhere, a little piece of me feels like I'm lying to my daughter because I know she's going to be in her 50s before we achieve equal pay. I know that she's going to face barriers and discrimination and inherent bias that my son will not. And how do I sit her down every night and tell her to dream big and that she's just like her brother when we actually have the statistics that show us she's not? And it's incumbent upon all of us to not just pass legislation here that helps change it, but to truly change culture. I know many of us are employers in this room. I've been an employer and will continue to be an employer. And to understand our own hiring practices. So for example, women enter the workforce and get paid less in the very practice of asking for salary history exacerbates the pay gap. So to all of us in this chamber, it's not just about legislation, it's about culture and really looking at how we all change that culture so at night, I don't have to lie to my daughter and not my son about what she can achieve.
Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'm proud to have been asked to be a co-sponsor of this important resolution, a resolution that shines a light on the fact that still in 2018, a woman is paid less than a man for doing the same work. When I researched this a bit, I found that way back in 1869, 150 years ago, in a letter to the editor in the New York Times, a woman complained that males were receiving $1,800 a year, while women only received $900 to do the same grade of work. Then in 1947, 70 years ago, then Secretary of Labor Louis Schwellenbach tried unsuccessfully to get a law passed to require equal pay for women. He said, "There's no difference in the food that she buys or the rent that she pays, so there should be none in her pay envelope." And it wasn't until 1963, 55 years ago, when we passed the Equal Pay Act, that one would think the light finally came on and that now this injustice had been addressed. But sadly, that was not the case. Still today, in 2018, white women only receive 80% of what men earn for doing the exact same work. African American women only earn 63% of what men earn for doing the same work. And sadly, Latinas like myself earn only 54 cents for every dollar a man earns for doing the same work. This is a sad statement about the persistence of discrimination, harassment, racism, and the abuse of power in our workplaces. This problem persists, and it persists at all levels. Only 9 months ago, right here in Denver, a female hearing officer won a $460,000 settlement because she was paid less than the males she oversaw. Less than 2 years ago, a female professor sued the university she worked for right here in Denver. She'd worked there for more than 37 years, and she was paid less than every male professor in that school. When we have so many families headed by a female and so many families still living in poverty, paying women the same as men for the exact same work would raise up our families and our overall standard of living. And more importantly, it's the right thing to do. We in this body are uniquely situated to make a difference. Bringing more transparency into the workplace is a first step, and hopefully this resolution will move us closer to equal pay for equal work. On behalf of the women in our state, I urge your support of this resolution. Thank you.
Representative Escar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in strong support of HJR 1017, and I thank the sponsors for bringing it forward. I want to share a little bit about how this impacts families just like mine, though, something that was left out of this resolution. Lesbian families bear even a greater economic burden. According to the Williams Institute, women in same-sex couples have a median personal income of only $38,000 compared to $47,000 for men in same-sex couples. What we need to remember is wage discrimination for women and those who live at the intersections of race, sexual orientation, and gender identity must come to an end. The compounding impact of earning less throughout our lifetimes leaves women more vulnerable as they age. With less economic security, this is a face in the recent threats to Social Security benefits and pension cuts. It's important for us to remember all the women in Colorado and make sure that we are always constantly putting everybody's identities and intersectionalities to the forefront to realize how we must all stand together to make things better for all of Colorado. Thank you again, sponsors, for bringing this forward.
Representative Michelson-Jeannet.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I also rise in support of this resolution and wanted to share a little story. I started in the workplace in 1984, and things were very different in the 80s and even in the 90s and 2000s, et cetera. And when I was in college, I took a job as the head waitress, which meant I was in charge of hiring the waitresses for food service on the weekends, cleaning the kitchen, preparing the food, et cetera. And I came to learn we weren't allowed to talk about our salaries, which, by the way, was in several of my workplaces, that it was policy that you weren't allowed to talk to another colleague about your earnings, which is a great way to make sure people don't find out they're underpaid. And I came to find out that my male counterpart earned, wait for it, 3 times what I was earning. So I talked to my fellow waitresses, and they were all very, very distressed about it. And we made an agreement that I would go and talk to our supervisor, and none of them would agree to take my job. So I went to the supervisor and I said, you know, my male colleague over here earns 3 times what I do for the same job, and unless you raise my salary to his, I quit. And he said, okay, quit. So I left, and he couldn't find anybody to take over my position for the following weekend. I got my job back, I got my pay back, and from my understanding, that pay stayed for subsequent head waitresses. But what happened there was women came together to support one another in a way where we could have a conversation and move the needle. And we moved the needle for each other, because the next person who took my job received the same pay rate as the male counterpart earned for this very hard job. Being in food service is very challenging, very labor intensive, and very rewarding if you like serving. And I like serving. So what I ask is, as we move forward every Equal Pay Day and try to move the needle, it's about conversations. The more that we talk about it, the more that we talk about what we're paying, the more that we have transparency, and we've done good work on that here in this chamber, the closer that we're going to come to equal pay for equal work. And I do believe that there is a desire for us to get there, and I do believe that that can happen through conversation. I thank the sponsors of this resolution for the opportunity, and I thank Madam Speaker for the opportunity to serve in this chamber where we do receive equal pay for equal work.
Representative Salazar.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And the thing I like about this resolution, and by the way, I rise in strong support of HJR 18-1017. The thing that I like about this resolution is that it's not just about gender. It also falls on racial lines. Because even there are huge disparities between the pay of white males and white females with their counterparts who are people of color. For example, Hispanic males earn 69 cents on the dollar and black males earn 73 cents on the dollar. But what hasn't been discussed is that there has been no progress made by Latinos and also African American males since the 1980s. Imagine that. 30 years, nearly 40 years have gone by, and the racial gender gap of Latino and black males has not made any progress since the 1980s. When we take a look at Hispanic females, 54 cents on the dollar now, it's different than what it was just a couple of years back when it was 58 cents on the dollar. We've actually regressed. For Native American females, now it's 53 cents on the dollar, and a couple of years back it was 58 cents on the dollar. What is going on in our country that we cannot seem to make up ground for women as well as for people of color? I think that it should serve as an example that we as representatives of this chamber, as well as the senators in the lower chamber, that we all earn the same pay. Each of us comes in with different qualifications, but we all earn the same pay. And if you're outside of a 50-mile radius of the city and county of Denver, then you get a per diem, but each of you receives a per diem on the same level. It may be a different amount depending on how far out you are, but it is the same rate of pay for your per diem. That should serve as an example to the rest of our state that it can be achieved and that we do achieve it, equal pay, in this chamber. So it would greatly surprise me if anybody rose up and said, no, I don't believe in equal pay because we are all living it. So thank you very much, bill sponsors, for bringing this. I guess this is my last equal pay day resolution as a state representative, and I'm glad to rise in strong support of HJR 18-1017.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in strong support of this resolution. Equal pay, to me, is the next chapter in the saga of civil rights. It is so important that we do not allow for discrimination to take place based on gender or race or ethnicity or sexuality. And as we move forward into this future, into this new century, I hope that we continue to have this conversation. In fact, I challenge each and every one of the members to think about what it's like to have to do more with less. So often when I think about equal pay, I think about the power of the dollar. And I think about what if your dollar had 30% less power than it does now? What if you had to pay your bills with less than what you have now? That's exactly what this pay gap means, because it means that that person has to work that much harder to be able to make what it is that you make. Fortunately, here in this chamber, we do receive equal pay, and so we don't have that discrepancy. But I think about people like my mother, who had to work 2 jobs, when if she was a male or even a white male, she probably would have only had to work 1. I think about my grandmother, who also worked numerous jobs, when my grandfather really only had to work 1. And I think about my grandfather, who worked his rear end off, and he probably wouldn't have had to work so hard had he been white. So when we talk about these levels and we talk about these gaps, just again, I challenge you to think about what it would mean if your dollar didn't mean as much as it does now, because that's the way this pay gap feels to so many others. So again, I rise in strong support of this, and I ask you all to support this resolution.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I wanted to speak on this resolution because equal pay or lack of it was a reality in my family actually before I was born. When my parents first got together, my mother was the big earner of the two. My father had just come back from serving in Vietnam and was going back to school to finish his degree and getting started in the workforce. And my mother in the academic and professional track was ahead of him, and she was a tenure track professor of library science and was supporting the two of them in the years even before I was born. And that may have been uncommon back then, but however many cents on the dollar fewer than 100 that she was getting certainly bore on the ability of my parents to start to live and save and pave the way for me and my brother who came after. You know, I've been taking a longer view of public policy and some of what we do or try to do around here. And if we look all the way back, if we look at all of the accomplishments in constructing a social safety net and evolving norms in the 20th century, I think we accomplished a lot. And then we look at the data in this resolution, and we know that, boy, do we have a lot of work to do still. So I hope we undertake to do it.
Representative Winter. Oh, okay. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote.
Can't clear the board and do a voice vote?
People already voted on it. I mean, nobody told me that.
That's what I was told before, it was a voice vote.
Okay, well, it was my understanding that it was going to be recorded vote. That was the last that was communicated.
That was not my understanding.
I don't know if we already told you that. Can you just agree that it wouldn't be? No, Jesse. So can you? No, I think go ahead. Just mention it. It's already open. Representative Catlin, Representative Humphrey, and Representative Van Winkle. Representative Lundin. Please close the machine. With 37 yes votes, 28 no votes, HJR 1017 is passed. Co-sponsors. 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 Please close the machine. All right, that takes us back to third reading of bills, final passage. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for the consideration of second reading general orders.
All right, seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for general order, second reading of bills. Representative Winter. All right, seeing no objection, Representative Winter will take the chair.
The committee will now come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there's a request for reading a bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless requested, as they are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads and not read unless requested. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the Majority Leader. The coat rule is relaxed.
Just two.
Mr. Connor, please read the title of House Bill 1258.
House Bill 1258, Representative Singer and Melton, all Senators Neville and Fenberg, concerning authorization for endorsement to existing marijuana license to allow for a marijuana accessory consumption establishment.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1258 and the committee reports on appropriations and finance.
To the appropriations report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Appropriations Committee simply allowed this to be run out of cash funds, so no additional taxpayer dollars will be going to support this, but will be paid for by the industry itself, and I ask for an aye vote.
The motion before us is acceptance of the Appropriations Committee report to 1258. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The Appropriations Committee report is passed. To the Finance report. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the finance report, we made a few changes, but we didn't make all the changes that we needed to. And so with that, I move Amendment L011 and ask that it be displayed.
L011 has been properly moved and explained. To the amendment. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were a number of technical changes, but the most important component of this is that the additional rules will be established by the Marijuana Education Oversight Committee. This is a bicameral, bipartisan, multifaceted group that includes everything from Smart Colorado to the Cannabis Patients Alliance, and it has shown itself to be much more effective when dealing with these public safety related issues, and I ask for an aye vote on Amendment L011.
Is there any further discussion on L011? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L011. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. L011 is passed. To the Finance Committee report. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a lot of robust conversation in the Finance Committee, and basically the Finance Committee report is the bill, and we ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the Finance Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Finance Committee report to House Bill 1258. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The Finance Committee report is passed. To the bill, Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move L012 and ask that it be displayed.
L012 has been properly displayed. To the amendment, Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just really a technical amendment that specifies that MED can take some action concerning an endorsement as well as it can with the licensees. Also, the label and packaging must be done by the store before it's transferred the product to an establishment, and they cannot use any form of liquefied gas on the premise. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion to L012? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L012. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? L012 is passed. Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L015 and ask that it be properly displayed.
L015 has been properly moved and properly displayed. Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this clarifies that the sales limits at the establishment can not be less than 1 gram of flour or 1/4 gram of concentrate. The establishments can not knowingly engage in multiple transactions with the same portion during the same day that exceeds the limits, and it adds clarity that neither a patron nor an employee of the establishment can use any form of medical marijuana at the establishment. Members, I would ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on L015? Seeing none, the question before us is L015. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. L015 is passed. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With that, since we're going with more amendments, I move L008 and ask that it be displayed.
L008 has been properly moved and displayed. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was actually a recommendation from one of our committee members on the Finance Committee. The crux of this bill is really ensuring that consumers know what they're getting and know what they're putting in their body. and ensuring that our consumers are well educated so they don't overconsume. And it's not just about having a bad time, it's about preserving public safety. So what this amendment does to the bill is it says that this bill is about not only consumption, but these are regulating these establishments for the purposes of consumer education, and this is so important. This is so important because we have tourists coming here who don't know what's going on, who are at a mile-high altitude, and then ultimately end up over-consuming, and like I say, are presenting a potential danger to themselves or putting a danger to others on the road when they do overconsume. And so I believe this is a really great idea from one of our other representatives who may want to say something about this, but I appreciate Representative Beckman's idea on this and ask for an aye vote on L008.
Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I stand in support of this amendment. Years ago, I talked to an emergency room technician in Las Vegas who said the logo that they adopted, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, was one of the worst things that could have happened to the tourist industry in Vegas because of the havoc it caused by people coming to Vegas and just acting stupid and doing things that actually ruin their lives, getting hurt, getting in accidents, getting DUIs, and it really caused a lot of problems. They don't use that phrase anymore, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, because people thought that they went to Never Never Land and could be an idiot without it impacting their lives. And that's one of the concerns that I have. For people coming to Colorado to recreate with the legalization of marijuana is that they have not been exposed to the drug before, and when they're eating edibles, it can be very, very damaging because the metabolism is very, very difficult to judge. I have a picture of that I would like to have displayed, because the State Patrol was at our hearing on this bill, and we're very concerned of the number of fatalities that are happening with the legalization of marijuana, because marijuana-related DUI citation and accident fatalities have risen recently, with no limit on the amount of marijuana that can be consumed and no restriction on the potencies of the products sold in this bill. It is very important that we do education when people come to Colorado for marijuana. I personally don't like this bill, but I'm going to support this amendment because I think it's important, because the State Patrol was very clear that this bill will increase the likelihood that individuals will get behind the wheel while they are impaired. So it's the responsibility of the industry, if they want to be thought of as a respected industry, that they do education about the negative effects of marijuana. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas wasn't necessarily true. And Colorado is not Never Never Land, and if you get too high and you do something stupid, that's going to ruin your life. So I do support this amendment.
Any further discussion on L008? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L008. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Opposed?
L008 is passed. Representative Milton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now that we're done with the long bill, we can talk about it. Really, this has been a long time coming. We've been discussing how do we properly and safely and responsibly allow customers, especially medical marijuana patients, to be able to sample different products and find the right medication, the right product for them. We've seen that local municipalities and local governments have tried to fix this on their own, but it's created such a patchwork that we as a state need to set at least some floor and some minimal standards around this issue. We, as you can see from all of the amendments, have been working with the division, with industry, with various stakeholders to make sure that this is addressed again in a responsible manner. And with that, members, I would ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Representative Beckman. You can move an amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L014 and ask for an aye vote and ask that it be displayed.
L014 has been properly moved and displayed. Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have heard a lot in this with marijuana discussion about how we can't have a patchwork of regulations and laws. But the reality is when the voters in Colorado, the citizens voted for recreational marijuana, the intent of that vote was to be able to have local control. Some communities have opened their arms to recreational marijuana, and others in my district, City of Centennial, City of Littleton, and others have not. And so I had a request from the City of Centennial if we could please put a setback like we do on other laws to, for this kind of facility. The amendment would allow a retail marijuana accessory consumption establishment endorsement to a retail marijuana center that is within 1,000 feet of a boundary within an adjoining jurisdiction that does not permit retail marijuana centers in its boundaries. I know that local control is very important to all of us, and that was the commitment to the voters, and I think that our communities want that, so I would ask for an aye vote. I think it makes it more palatable for those cities and districts that don't have recreational marijuana businesses.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Beckman, for bringing this up. I think local control is incredibly important, and setbacks are incredibly important. I thought we were talking about a fracking bill for a second, and I was really excited. But you know, I don't know if this changes the support of any members of the General Assembly on as to what this bill actually does. If this, you know, if this brings greater consensus among the members, I certainly support it. But you know, I'm just going to ask the members to vote your conscience on this one.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I agree with my co-prime sponsor. I honestly, I think that this should be left in the hands of local governments to determine whether or not that permit should be done right there on the border. But I understand that there can be spillover from one county or one local municipality to another. And so with that, members, I would ask you to vote your conscience.
The question before us is the adoption of L014. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. L014 is passed. Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I renew my request for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1258? Seeing none, the question, Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I heard this bill in committee, and one of the concerns that I have is the fact that marijuana affects everyone a little bit differently. And those effects may not, the impact of testing this marijuana, even on site, may not be felt for an hour or more. So someone may taste a little bit of a product, think that they're fine, leave the establishment, get in their car, drive home, drive wherever they're going, and then have the effects hit them. I think there is just too much unknown in this, especially when we're talking about how these different products affect everyone differently. I think this is definitely a public safety concern for me. I think this could add a little bit more danger to the driving conditions on the roads, to impaired driving. For some people, it's not going to have a great effect. For others, we just don't know. And I just don't think, if we're talking about public safety, this is a good idea going forward. I just don't think this is something that we need in Colorado. And this is just expanding the scope of this beyond where I think the voters' intent was placed when they passed Amendment 64. So I would ask for a no vote on this bill.
Representative Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I rise also in opposition to this bill. We made a commitment to the voters, or the voters, quite frankly, voted in these new elements, this experiment that is becoming broader and broader in our society, with the understanding that we would control and provide for safety. And I'm concerned that this bill is extending out further opportunities, that create public safety risks and threats, when we still don't have a basic understanding, a basic handle on the public safety issues that exist based on this. So thank you very much. My suspenders are getting a very, very warm embrace from the back row over here on this side. But my point is that, in fact, we still don't completely understand the public safety issues, the public safety threats, the public safety risks that we have associated with marijuana in the state today, and to extend further to provide other outlets that would even push those risks further out, I think is inappropriate. So I rise in opposition to this bill. I do appreciate the amendments to the bill, but I still remain resolute in opposition.
Representative Melton? Representative Beckman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Colorado State Patrol was at our hearing and gave some pretty compelling testimony. They were very concerned about the safety and what this would create in our communities. But one of the discussions that was had in committee is that House Bill 1258 wouldn't prohibit kids from entering these facilities. And this bill allows anyone qualified to purchase medical marijuana to go into the marijuana use facility. I may not have been tracking all of the amendments, but I want to make sure that this isn't this isn't correct, because it's troubling and the bill is vague in a way, leaving the door open with kids. And that's something else that we promised the voters, that local control, and that we would keep it out of the schools and away from our children. And I'm concerned that this bill does not do that, unless I've missed something in the amendment. So I will ask the sponsors to discuss the vagueness of this bill, or the detail of this bill.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So while it's not specifically referred to in this bill, I think what is incredibly important to remember is that we don't put everything in the bill that's already in statute. So, for example, these are endorsements onto existing licenses. The existing licensee requirements do not change on the basis of that endorsement. So what does that mean? If I'm a 16-year-old medical marijuana patient, I'm not entering a dispensary. A parent is purchasing that for me. There's a qualified guardian or buyer that's purchasing that medicine for me. So this would not be allowing 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds or 2-year-olds or 12-year-olds to enter these premises, because this is already predicated on an existing dispensary license. So there's nothing in this that overturns any old requirement that is currently in statute. So if we need to put an additional belt and suspenders, where did Representative Lundin go? If we need to put an additional belt and suspenders on this, if the bill passes out of the House and gets over to the Senate to clarify that even further, I'm happy to put in that bright line. But this is actually, I'll just say what this bill actually does. This bill is a compromise bill that says existing dispensaries, existing licensees, if you want to apply for an endorsement to allow for consumption, you can, and you've got to get that endorsement not only from the state but from the locals. So wherever you're located, whether it's Denver or Boulder or Aurora or Colorado Springs, you've got to apply for it there. You've also got to apply for it at the state level, and all the rules and regulations that apply to you already still apply. There's no get out of jail free card here. So that's what this bill does. This doesn't create a new license. This doesn't create additional exceptions to what's already in state law. All this bill does is ensure that people who want to consume aren't doing it in our streets, aren't doing it in our playgrounds, aren't doing it in these public venues, and actually have a place to go. We've got one model in Denver that seems to be working okay, but the rest of the state is still looking for answers. This provides another avenue, provides a crack in the door, and still has those safeguards that you're talking about. So kids can't enter a dispensary today. If you don't have ID and you're not an adult, you're not getting in. So this doesn't change that.
Representative Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And to extend the metaphor further, I'm a risk taker personally. I'm an entrepreneur, 30 years of standing up companies. I don't wear belts and suspenders. I wear one or the other. Today it's suspenders. And And let's continue to push this metaphor on further. I think the people of Colorado aren't really asking for belt and suspenders either. They're just saying, give us one or the other. Let's truly understand what's going on in our society. How are the consequences of marijuana spilling out beyond what we currently understand? How can we get a better handle on the meaning that this is to our communities in terms of the extending and cascading impacts, many of which are negative and not understood. So I'm not really asking for belt and suspenders here on this particular bill, but I do think it tees up the question about we'd like to have either a belt or suspenders in a better understanding of what marijuana is doing to our communities.
Representative Milton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And what I would say is, right now, the voters are asking for belts and suspenders because we're seeing local governments all passing their own solution to this problem. And that solution is creating, again, this patchwork of regulation. We need a floor. We need some suspenders so to give some guidance to those local communities. And the local communities can still deny whether or not that endorsement is given on those permits. So we're not saying that every shop has to now start giving out marijuana and everybody can just go and sample it. We're saying that we've got a problem across the state on how to deal with this issue. Each local government is taking a different approach, but it's not giving clear direction for enforcement and for different guides. This sets that floor, it sets that standard.
Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just wrap it up because the State Patrol, Colorado State Patrol, came and testified, and their testimony was so compelling and strong. I think that it is important to talk a little bit more about what they said. The language of Amendment 64, which legalized marijuana, said nothing shall permit consumption that is conducted openly and publicly in a manner that endangers others. The Colorado State Patrol spokesperson was very concerned about the issue of edibles because people don't understand the impact of these drugs for a period of time. It's not like having a drink. They're very concerned about the DUI citations and accident fatalities that have recently risen because of the legalization of marijuana. And they're concerned that no limit on the amount of marijuana that can be consumed and no restriction on the potency of the products sold, that this bill will increase the likelihood of individuals that will get behind the wheel, not understanding how impaired they actually are until they drive 10, 15 minutes and the impact of the marijuana sets in. I was surprised at how strongly they testified against this bill. I think we are stepping into uncharted territories. I do not believe that the voters' intent was to have marijuana consumed openly and publicly, and I would ask for a no vote on this bill.
Representative Willett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure I've ever come down to speak in the well on a marijuana issue, but I am going to today. I did call for an interim committee to study the pros and cons, economic and otherwise, of marijuana. I learned quite a bit about the industry and about, let's use a term, fake news about the industry and about its problems. I'm not going to go into all the different pros and cons. I'm going to give you my closing argument. When I was in Arizona during the last election cycle, they had a referred measure about marijuana in Arizona. And ads were coming on the TV, pro and con. Guess who was on the con against marijuana TV advertisement in Arizona? Former Governor Bill Owens, hand in hand or arm in arm with former Mayor Wellington Webb, Republican and Democrat. I also quote, and they were both against it strongly. I also see the various quotes and problems by our current Denver Mayor Hancock and our current governor. And although Governor Hickenlooper has flip-flopped on this, including the most recent Rolling Stone article, I think it's safe to say that the gist of his comments, including those to a U.S. congressman on the airplane, was don't go there. So folks, when I'm asked by my constituents, can you give me a nice thumbnail sketch of marijuana, I cite Owens, Wellington Webb, Hickenlooper, and Hancock, who all say don't do it. So don't do it means also don't expand it. Vote no against this bill and any bill that expands recreational marijuana. Thank you.
Any further discussion on 1258? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of 1258. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. 1258 is passed. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1280.
House Bill 1280, Representative Melton, concerning regulatory procedures related to the employment for a core employee for a regulated marijuana business.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1280 and the Appropriations Committee report.
To the Appropriations report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In appropriations, they just basically approve the cash funding that this would generate from the additional licenses. I would ask for an aye vote.
The question, is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Appropriations Committee report is passed. To the bill. Representative Milton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what House Bill 1280 does is it clarifies for our courts what should happen should a license or a business, should a business need to be transferred to another person. This could happen in the case of death or a number of other different things. Right now, the courts, the statute is unclear as to whether or not the new person has to get a license. We actually require this with alcohol, with liquor licenses, and so this just puts us in parity with that. With that, members, I would ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1280? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1280. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. 1280 is passed. Mr. Connor, please read the title of House Bill 1283.
House Bill 1283, Representative Benavides, House Senator Network, concerning classification of residential land for property tax purposes for those holding or significant changes to residential improvements located upon the land.
Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move the Finance Committee report for House Bill 1283 and House Bill 1283.
Thank you. To the Finance Committee report.
The Finance Committee approved this bill. Basically what it does, it allows people who have raised a residential property in order to build a new residence. If they haven't been able to build it by January 1st, it allows them to keep the residential tax assessment for 1 year to give them time to get a contractor or complete the construction. In the Finance report, we just made one correction to do a conforming amendment. So I would urge support of the committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the Finance Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the approval of the Finance Committee report for House Bill 1283. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The Finance Committee report is adopted. To the bill.
I think
Representative Benavides.
Madam Chair, thank you. I think I explained what the bill does. It's a good bill, and I encourage your support. Thank you.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1283? Seeing none, the question before us is House Bill 1283. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. 1283 is adopted. Mr. Randall, please. Representative Young. Representative Young. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1335.
House Bill 1335, Representative Young, House Senator Lumberg, concerning the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program in connection with establishing eligibility requirements for all the counties can create a new formula to determine the amount of block grants to counties.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1335 till after House Bill 1296.
Question before us is to lay over House Bill 1335. Seeing no objection, it will be laid over. Do we have Representative Janal Jackson? Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1261 day.
The question before us is to lay over House Bill 1261 day. Seeing no objection, it will be laid over. All right. House Bill. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you. I've got several of these.
Perfect.
I move to lay over House Bill 1209 till April 13th.
The motion before us is to lay over House Bill 1209 until April 13th. Seeing no objection, it will be laid over. All right. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1283 till after House Bill 1335.
House Bill 1283 is going to be laid over until after House Bill 1335. Seeing no objection. Yeah, we already laid that over, right? Madam Majority Leader. I believe we are on House Bill 1231.
Okay. Sorry. I move to lay over House Bill 1231 till after House Bill 1007.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1231 until after House Bill 1007. Seeing no objection, it is laid over. That brings us to Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1279 one day.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1279 for 1 day. Seeing no objection, it will be laid over.
Are you guys ready on 1007?
I'm ready over to the other.
That's what I texted and he didn't reply. Okay.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1007 until April 13th.
House Bill 1007 will be laid over until April 13th. See no objection. I believe that brings us to 1231. Mr. Randall, please read the title of 1231.
House Bill 1231, by Representative Benavides, concerning the repeal of Columbus Day as a legal holiday in connection therewith making Election Day a legal holiday.
Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have an amendment. It's a multi-page amendment that was passed out to everybody. Oh, I have to move the bill. Can I move House Bill 1231?
And the Local Government Committee report.
And the committee report from local government.
That has been properly moved. And Representative Benavides, is the amendment to the bill or the committee report?
The amendment is to the committee report.
Great. And so you want to move amendment?
I would move amendment L004.
Amendment L004 to the Local Government Committee report has been properly moved and displayed and is also on your desk. Representative Benavides to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And L004 replaces the committee report. It's a substitute in that. And I think on your desk you should have received an official pre-amended, unofficial pre-amend version. Basically, what this bill does, we had a lengthy discussion in local government with regard to repealing Columbus Day and making Election Day a holiday. So what the amendment does, it explains the importance of making Election Day a holiday. In committee, we had the Secretary of State's office, Common Cause, and someone else speak on behalf of the clerk and recorder in Boulder, who've been doing this for well over a decade, and that this would really encourage the participation of our state employees. By making it a state holiday, it does not impact all business. It only impacts Colorado state employees. The amendment also creates a task force in the state Historical Society, and that task force will evaluate ways to honor communities and their heritages, not limited to any in particular, but that the first one they would look at would be how to recognize and honor Italians for their contributions to the state, and that a report on that be given to the State Affairs Committees by the end of December of this year, so if they make a recommendation that we can act on it next year. And then the following year, during next year, they would look at all other communities that it might be important to recognize. Members, this bill is really important because I'm sure you know, if you've been here more than 1 year, that this is an annual discussion, and it seems to be without a resolution. This would allow us to come to a resolution. We have 10 holidays, and those holidays are to recognize basically events like 4th of July, Labor Day, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Veterans Day. They are also recognized two individuals where individuals are recognized, and that is Martin Luther King Day and President's Day, and those are for contributions to the United States history. We do not, other than on Columbus Day, recognize anyone who has never come to the United States and has not been a part of our country. So and we don't recognize heritage days for any of our holidays. We do that in other ways. So this just puts us in line with the way we've looked at holidays as a state. So I would encourage your support of this bill. It puts us behind us. It allows people with the expertise to try to find a resolution. Thank you, members.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I just wanted to share with you a little bit of information that I went through in a committee with respect to some of these provisions, which is I was actually pretty concerned about making Election Day a holiday in general, because I think that Election Day is the day that we need our government to be functioning as best as it possibly can. We sort of need all hands on deck. And I actually got a little bit of education about that in Boulder County, one of the counties that I represent, they've actually had an election day as a holiday for a good number of years. And the net result has been a lot of folks who don't really normally work in the election area go and volunteer as election day poll watchers and election judges and that sort of thing. They actually have more assistance than less. And so if any of you, again, I know not everybody who wasn't on the committee has dug into this bill enough. That was sort of one of the big concerns I had, was closing down the government on Election Day created concerns for me, but it's actually had the opposite effect in Boulder County to have more folks available who would otherwise be at their normal day job at Human Services or something like that can actually volunteer to assist with the election process. We got a better election workforce rather than a lesser election workforce. All the other components of the bill notwithstanding, I just wanted to get that out there because it was actually really helpful information for me in looking at some of this. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on L004? Representative Ransom. This to the amendment. Any further discussion on L004? Representative Escar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Benavides, thanks for taking a hard look at this issue. Those of you who may not know, I come from Pueblo. And I know, shocking, right? But this holiday has always been a very big deal in Pueblo, no matter which side you are on. And I think it's something that's super important to both sides of this issue. It's something that they have continuously worked hard to try to come to a moment of clarity between each other. We just haven't gotten there yet. There's been tremendous grassroots work in my community to find a way to resolve this issue. There's people on this side of the Italian Americans who say this is our holiday. We have no other holiday. There's members of the Native American communities in my district who say that this is an atrocity. This is not a day we should be celebrating this man, not necessarily the Italian heritage. So I really want to commend Representative Benavides for this amendment. I love that it's going to make a task force and actually bring people in the grassroots in our communities together to work on this issue and to really find a way to make sure that we can honor all the heritages of Colorado that makes this state great. So I support Amendment L004.
Is there any further discussion on L004? Representative Ransom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we did discuss this whole aspect of the day at length in committee. And the thing I would want to say about the Election Day substitution is that Election Day is really only the day we count the votes. It's not the day so much that people go vote, because with the mandatory mail ballots and all the lengthy time that election centers are open, people really, they can vote on Election Day, and we certainly welcome them to, and they're certainly entitled to, but so many people vote before Election Day, and so I just wanted to let people know that that discussion was held as well, that Election Day is not really the day the majority of us vote. Most of us have voted well before Election Day. So I urge a no vote on the amendment.
Any further discussion on L004? The question before us is the adoption of Amendment L004. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. L004 is passed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is my understanding that L004, because it creates a committee, will also create a new fiscal note. And so where's the, there she is. So I'm happy for anyone to keep debating the bill, but I will make a motion to move it back to the Appropriations Committee.
Can
I speak in favor of
the motion before us is to move House Bill 1231. Representative Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So after the debate is done and after if and when the Local Government Committee report is adopted, then I will make the motion to move to appropriations.
That we have before us the adoption of the local committee report. Representative Benavides, local government committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of the local government committee report.
All those in favor of adopting the local government committee report say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The local government committee report has been adopted. Representative Ransom.
Yeah, whatever you want. Yes.
Representative Ransom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to support the Majority Leader's motion that we send this bill back to appropriations. I always do like to see those pink sheets and be able to go through those fiscal notes, as you all know. So I just wanted to actually speak in support of the motion to move this back to appropriations.
Madam Majority Leader. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that House Bill 1231 be referred to the Appropriations Committee as amended.
The motion is to refer House Bill 1231 as amended to the Appropriations Committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. 1231 is going back to Appropriations. That brings us to House Bill 1296. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1296.
House Bill 1296, Representatives Melton Everett, Rosales, Marble, Moreno, constraining expansion of the ability to leave a motor vehicle untenanted in certain circumstances.
You go first.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, tomorrow is not Bowtie Friday, so I move House Bill 1296. There are no committee reports.
To the bill.
Good bill vote yes.
Any further discussion on 1296? Representative Esker? No. Any further discussion on 1296? Seeing none before us, the question is the adoption of House Bill 1296. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. 1296 is adopted. That brings us to House Bill 1335. Representative Young. And Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1335.
House Bill 1335 by Representative Young, Senator Lumberg, concerning the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program in connection with establishing eligibility requirements for all counties and creating a new formula to determine the amount of block grants counties.
Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate your patience. I move House Bill 1335 and the committee report from the Appropriations Committee.
To the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Appropriations Committee report makes some minor technical changes. I ask for your aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, this is a bill around the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program. Acronym is CCAP. It was a bill that our Joint Budget Committee staffer, Vance Roper, brought to us in order to actually create a sustainable future for this program going forward. This past year, we discovered some counties were actually hitting wait lists, and the amount of money that was coming in was going to actually create not just a cliff effect, but what Mr. Roper had determined was a canyon effect, maybe a Grand Canyon effect. And so he came to us with a set of solutions that are encapsulated in House Bill 1335. We have broad sweeping support from the counties and others that this is a good solution, and that's why we're bringing it to you. I ask for your aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1335? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1335. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. House Bill 1335 is passed. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Awesome job today. I move to lay over House Bill 1011 till April 13th.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1011 until April 13th. Seeing no objection, it is laid over. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1263 one day.
House Bill 1260, the motion is to lay House Bill 1263 over one day. Seeing no objection, it will be laid over. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1286 one day.
1286? Assistant Majority Leader is the number 1286.
Yes.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1286 for one day. Seeing no objection, it will be laid over. That brings us to House Bill 1307 with Representative Singer, Representative Lee. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1307.
House Bill 1307, Representative Singer and Lee, also Senators Gardner and Cook, concerning restricting the availability to children of products that contain dextromethorphan.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1307. There is no committee report. Thank you. Members, this is a bill to take a product which is dangerous to children when abused into a more protected realm. Dextromethorphan has been known to be abused by young kids. They buy this common cough suppressant, which is a valuable cough suppressant, and then take it in large quantities and has adverse effects on them. What this bill does is to require, before the sale of this product, that the clerk asks for an ID. And if the child does not have, if the person does not have an ID, then they cannot buy the product. If there's a violation and the product is sold, the first violation is a warning letter, and for a second violation, it could be up to a $250 fine, which would be waived if the employer has engaged in training. So this is really a bill which is consensus of retail shops who want to be able to provide access to this valuable medicine, but also prevent its abuse by children. And I will defer to my colleague.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Robo-tripping, purple drink, syrup, double cupping. Do these words mean anything to you? If they don't, they should. Because these are the words and the lyrics of the music that's out there today. These are the words that are spoken in classrooms today. And it's all relating back to dextromethorphan, cough syrup. When you use it the right way, it works. When you overdose, you can die. So this is the question that we have. Are we going to relitigate a war on drugs, or are we going to create a simple a simple setup of rules and regulations that everyone agrees to. The Retailers Council, hospital organizations, public health organizations, and even high school students all coming to committee to ask for the same thing, to say, do not sell this to kids under the age of 18. If parents want to buy this for their kids, that's one thing. But our under 18-year-olds, just like we do with all sorts of other substances right now, this is the next drug of choice. So we can either draw the line in the sand today or see bigger effects down the road that involve hurting our youngest kids. So with that, I ask for an aye vote on this bill and expect everyone to get up on their 3-6 Mafia lyrics so they can understand exactly what's going on in our kids' lives right now, and look forward to seeing a favorable vote out of this chamber and then sending it on to the Senate, where we have 2 Republican sponsors to carry the bill.
Representative Ransom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do want to thank the sponsors for trying to get out in front of this issue. We heard in committee that this drug is actually dangerous and that there are problems with it, that there are kids overdosing on it, and that it leads to some severe side effects when kids overdose on it. And in that regard, I know I had an issue with even leaving it legal at all. If a drug is dangerous, I think it should be made either illegal, but in this case, make it prescription, because that would keep the real controls on it. And what we were told in committee is that it's such an effective cough syrup, they really don't want to make it illegal, or just prescription. They also want to allow adults to be able to buy it. And the problem that I had with that was that there are kids that are very responsible. I think we're legislating to the lowest common denominator when we're saying that every child under 18 is incapable of making that decision. You all know that I was a single mom, I still am a single mom, and for many years I would have to have my older kids babysit the younger ones, and if someone was sick, I had very responsible 16 and 17-year-old children that were fully capable of calling me at work, figuring out what one of the younger ones needed, and if they needed a specific cough syrup, that then they would be able to go buy it. Well, according to this bill, it would be deeming my 17-year-olds at the time not responsible enough to make that purchase, even when I had asked them to do it and given them specific instructions on what to buy. So I just have a problem with the government trying to legislate for the kids that are abusing it, for the percentage that are abusing it. If it is such an effective drug, we should leave it available for the kids and then let parents maybe teach their kids, or the schools have some instruction that there are dangers to taking it. Now, the other problem that I had is that this dextromethorphan is in a lot of very common over-the-counter purchases that kids under 18 might have very valid reasons for purchasing, such as Robitussin, NyQuil, Dimetapp, Vicks, Alka-Seltzer Plus, Sudafed, Coricidin, and others. So these are medications that are over the counter that a 16 or 17-year-old might have very valid reasons for buying. So I just wanted to let you know why I was a no vote on committee. It came out a very split vote. So there were people on our side of the aisle that voted both ways, and I totally get that some people want to protect the kids under 18, but again, I think that the parents can do a better job of that, especially when this is a medication that some kids under 18 truly might have a very valid need for, and we have responsible teenagers that are fully capable of making those purchases on behalf of their parents. So I thank the sponsors again, but again, I do urge a no vote on the bill.
Any further conversation on House Bill 1307? Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, sponsors, for bringing this bill. And I appreciate Representative Ransom talking about the responsible decisions that our teenagers make, because we all made responsible decisions as teenagers ourselves. but I want you to pay attention to a couple of issues on this bill. We ID for cigarettes, we ID for beer, we even ID for spray paint, for Pete's sake. Let's reduce the temptation. Dex is more dangerous than those aforementioned products. Of course, if you smoke cigarettes long enough, it's going to have a bad effect on you. If you drink enough beer, it's going to have a bad effect on you. But when we're talking about young people that are mixing this Dex, that's serious stuff. So as parents, and this would apply, Representative Ransom, to you as a parent as well, matches and lighters aren't restricted or regulated. How many of you as parents allow your children to play with matches and lighters? You know, you say, well, you know, we can control that. But I will guarantee you, if they're playing with matches and lighters as teenagers and someone gets burned up, we'd look at it a whole lot differently than we would at home where we can control it. Like it or not, we can't control everything that our children do. Thank God most of those things are not long-term harmful to them or fatal. But this is something we can control. This is something we should be able to do so. And I'm assuming in this, sponsors, and you'll have to answer that if I send my child to purchase it, do I have to send them a permit slip, or what do we do with that to allow them to purchase it? But as far as the Dex, folks, it's worse than what we understand. And if we wait long enough, we'll understand it a whole lot better. Unfortunately, I urge a yes vote.
Any further discussion? Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also urge a yes vote. I think this is, a couple years ago I ran a bill about spice, and I think this is a similar thing, except this is even easier to get if you're 18 or under. I've talked to people. I talked to my grandkids. They're well aware of it. I've talked to college kids who told me some of the things it's called and how they go around with cups of it at parties and drink this stuff instead of alcohol. This is dangerous. It does cause brain damage. We need to put a stop to it before it gets worse. I urge a yes vote.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1307? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1307. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. 1307 is adopted. That brings us to House Bill 1152. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1152.
House Bill 1152 by Representative Loris, House Senator Cook, concerning making certain records of the State Judicial Department subject to the Colorado Open Records Act.
Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1152 and the State Affairs Committee report.
To the State Affairs Committee report.
Members, an amendment was added to this that actually narrows the scope of this bill, and what it does is applies to workplace sexual harassment claims to make sure that claimants have the ability to see the process as it works its way through the judicial branch. And with that, I would ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion to the State Affairs Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the State Affairs Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this is a small step forward for just a shimmer of transparency when it comes to the judicial branch, but I think it's an important step, especially when we're talking about sexual harassment claims in the workplace. What we heard in testimony was that the claimant did not have access to that information. Once that claim was filed, it somehow was lost in the abyss of the judicial branch. And we need to make sure that those claims and that process is brought into the light of day, especially for the claimant. They absolutely should know what's going on in that process. And with that, I would ask for an aye vote on this bill. I would also like to thank Representative Weissman for his work on this and the committee's help in giving us time to come up with language that would actually move this bill forward. So with that, I would ask for an aye vote on House Bill 1152.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1152? Seeing none, all those in favor of House Bill 1152 say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. 1152 is adopted. That brings us to House Bill 1181. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1181.
House Bill 1181, Burbs, and listen also to take concerning measures to expand the ability of non-resident electors to participate in the governance of special districts in connection with allowing non-resident electors to own taxable property within a special district to vote in special district elections, and allowing such electors to serve in special district boards in non-voting capacity.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I move House Bill 1181 and also the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you. Members, what House Bill 1181 does, what the committee report did, they made clear that to be able to vote in this type of election for the board of directors, you had to be a natural person meaning a real person, kind of like me. Of course, some people may not think I'm a real person, but a natural person. So a real person. It also clarified that a person requesting the ballot is an eligible real elector from that state. And it makes clear that the special district, that this is an opt-in, that it's not a mandate on the board. So if the board is comfortable and they want to allow out-of-state voters to be able to vote for the board, it's opt-in, so it's voluntary, not mandatory. And also that the form that the special, that the elector turns in, that it has to be notarized. It was it's a good amendment, passed out of committee 7-2. I asked for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report to House Bill 1181. Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I was one of the no votes against this bill in committee. You know, letting out-of-state people vote in our elections, particularly with respect to infrastructure, is something that I think is not something we want to go down that uncertain road. I think in committee, the people from special districts talked about that there is nothing to stop special districts to set up advisory councils or committees made up of out-of-state property owners that could weigh in on proposals that special districts vote for. So I think there's ways to do that already. The sponsors, to their credit, did bring up a town in Mountain View. I can't remember. Mountain Village. I can't remember where Mountain Village was, but it was a small town, and they had determined to allow out-of-state voters. But they changed their charter, which is basically their constitution, to do that. They're the only municipality that has done that in the state. And so I just think this is sort of a bridge too far, and I would urge a no vote on this bill.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, members, first of all, a yes vote on this does not allow the voters to vote on infrastructure. It only allows, I emphasize this, it only allows the out-of-state voters to vote for the board of directors. That's all it does. They can vote on nothing else, no tax increases or infrastructure or whatever. And as far as precedent goes, yes, Representative Benavides raised a good point. Currently in Colorado, the town of Mountain Village by Telluride already does this, and they've been doing it for 20 years, and they allow their citizens to vote on everything. We're not asking that in special districts, but for the record, 9 other states allow their citizens to vote for the board of directors already. So we're not paving new ground. We're just doing what 9 other states have been successfully doing already. So I urge an aye vote for this committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report to House Bill 1181? Seeing none, the question before us is the committee report to House Bill 1181. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The committee report is adopted. Representative Liston to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, members, you've already heard really what this bill is about, but I'll go through it again. Once again, right now we have good citizens who own property in special districts. They pay their taxes willingly and ably. They're glad to do it, but they want to be a little more actively engaged. They love their communities where they live, and they would at least like to have the ability. Right now, it's taxation without representation. They pay their taxes every year, and quite frankly, a lot of special districts, most of them, they just kind of blow people away and say, don't bother us, but be sure and pay your taxes, but don't bother us. So, but there's a lot of the people that would at least like to say, hey, I think Joe is a good person would be a good person on the board. I've known Joe, he's responsible, and I think he would be a good board member, and I would like to have the ability to vote for Joe or Susie or whomever. This just gives them the ability, but it's not carte blanche. We built in some safeguards. First of all, they have to be a real person, kind of like us, or at least like me, unlike special district elections where the ballot is automatically mailed out, here the person, the out-of-state voter, they have to request a notarized form saying that they're an eligible elector and that they're eligible and all these safeguards, and it has to be notarized, and then they have to hand it to the designated election official that they want the ballot. So the special district is not required to mail out ballots like they are for in-state people. So it's a built-in safeguard. Let's see, like I say, 9 other states already do this. The good people, we heard this amendment that we just agreed upon was passed out of committee 7-2. Good, strong bipartisan support. The Special District Association is comfortable with this. The county clerks are comfortable with this. The Secretary of State's office is comfortable with this. And last but not least, there's no fiscal impact on the budget at all. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I rise in respectful opposition to this bill. My district in particular, you can imagine, has a lot of second homeowners. However, I'm not sent here to represent the second homeowners. I am sent here to represent the people who live there full time. The board of directors of these special districts make decisions not just for the people who own the homes, but for the locals who live there year-round. They make decisions that have an impact on the lives of the people who live there year-round. I think the people who elect those boards of directors must be registered voters and residents of the special district. These people contribute to the town through paying of their taxes of their vacation homes, but they are not there full-time. They do not understand the community aspect of a full-time resident, and I think the boards of directors who get elected need to have that priority in mind at all times and not trying to seek votes from out-of-state people who don't live in Colorado and don't live in these special districts. This bill is a very dangerous precedent, and I'd ask for a no vote.
Representative Liston. Would you like to respond? Oh, Representative Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the comments from Representative Roberts. It's interesting to note of the witnesses who came and testified, there were 5 or 6 witnesses. They were all in-state. They all strongly supported this bill. They were in-state voters. They have no problem with this. Quite frankly, a lot of the boards also and the small, especially the small special districts, they are really looking for interested people and to serve on their boards. And if an out-of-state voter, which this does not allow them to serve, but if they can help encourage an in-state voter to serve on the board, then that's a positive. But everybody who came and testified for this was for the bill. Nobody testified against it. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Ryer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I stand here today in favor of this bill. One of the things that hasn't been talked about is the special districts in the rural areas. Out where I am, because most of it is farm ground, there are more absentee owners of that ground because they've leased their ground out, they inherited it, or for whatever reason. But that ground is theirs, and the decisions that are made in the special water districts or other special districts that affect that land, they are going to be interested in. So they should have the right to vote for what happens to their property, and it does make a difference. They are more involved, since it's ag land, they're more involved in the decision making on a daily basis anyway. So I stand in positive. I call for an aye vote on this bill.
Representative Sane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in respect to one of my colleagues' comments earlier about representing voters in his district, I just want to remind everybody this is about special districts. We were not elected to represent special districts, and so this is one of those cases where this is a very thoughtful piece of legislation. I would urge your consideration of a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1181? Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was on the committee that heard this bill, and I was one of 2 no votes against this bill. I am concerned that having voters from out of state vote in our elections, even though they're special districts and they have property, that they should not be given the same rights as people who live there year-round. I understand that you want to protect your property and make sure the value is strong, but if you really want to be a full-time resident and vote, then you should move there. You should not have the same rights as someone who lives there every day. And so I recognize it's just for board members, and they do have sometimes a hard time finding people to sit on those boards, but just because you have a difficulty with that doesn't give people who don't live in our state extra rights. I'm sorry. I just can't support this, and I ask for a no vote.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, members, you know, we're a state that has always welcomed out-of-state people. You know, we want them to come here and spend their money, pay taxes, sales tax, everything else. They pay property taxes. They're glad to pay all of that, and they obey our laws. There are people from out of state that have been coming to Colorado for years. There's family history, family generations. There's probably people in this chamber that are here as a result of their parents or their grandparents or their aunts and uncles, because they came and they were willing to invest in Colorado and buy property in Colorado. They have been paying taxes for years and years. They don't complain. Quite the contrary, they are such good citizens that I can give you one brief example that down in southern Colorado, one of the fire protection districts, they don't have money enough to upgrade their fire trucks. So who stepped forward? It was the out-of-state citizens that were voluntarily writing checks, not just at a bake sale. They said, does your fire truck need upgraded? Well, here's a $1,000 check from Susie and I, and we happen to live in Texas or Oklahoma or wherever. And here's another resident who's lived out of state, and he says, here's a $5,000 check because we want this community to prosper and grow and to do well, and we want to protect it. So what is wrong with giving an out-of-state person who pays those property taxes year in and year out just a little say in who governs their special district? That's all we're asking. These are good people. They're honest. They're hardworking. They love Colorado. And yes, someday they might even move here, or they bring their grandkids here and the grandkids move here, and then they stay and they vote and they become good, productive citizens. So I urge an aye vote on House Bill 1181.
Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Lontine, I think your comments were a little disturbing because we have thousands and thousands of military who live in this state and they vote elsewhere. So to say that somebody who lives in another state and wants to vote here shouldn't have the same rights, that they are somehow less capable of making decisions about where their property is, which is what Representative Liston is trying to do, is to say just the opposite for our vets, that they live here, they vote elsewhere, and somehow they're not capable of making the decisions for their home of record. I think that's unfair, and I think the people that Representative Liston is talking about should definitely have a say in their property and what's happening to it, the value of their property. Thank you. Vote yes.
Is there any further discussion of House Bill 1181? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1181. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1181 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1271.
House Bill 1271, Representatives Gray and Willett. I'll Senator Tate concerning authorization of economic development rates to be charged by electric utilities for qualifying non-residential home customers.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1271 and the Transportation Committee report.
To the committee report.
In the Transportation Committee, we adopted a few amendments that basically clarified the intent of this bill, which is with respect to the procurement side of the legislation to show that nothing's really going to change with respect to the processes of who can deliver some of the energy production that exists in this bill. And so I'd ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion of the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Transportation Committee report. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. The committee report passes. To the bill. Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, it is an honor to have this bill here on the House floor today after a lot of work. This is probably the biggest piece of economic development legislation that we will work on this year, and it will help create and attract new businesses to the state. The great part about it is it will do it with no taxpayer exposure and no taxpayer expense. Most of the time when we're talking about economic development in this building, we're talking about weighing between some sort of tax credit and tax incentive to try to attract and retain great businesses to the state. In this case, we don't have to do that because this is something where one private business can assist the process in bringing in other private businesses and customers to this state through economic development tariffs and through renewable energy programs. This bill is supported broadly and close to unanimously by the business community, the Colorado Association of Commerce and Industry, and I think Representative Willett is going to list a few more for us. But this is a great example where private businesses can help us attract other private businesses, bring in great jobs, bring in great value, all with no taxpayer exposure whatsoever. I would ask for an aye vote.
Representative Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I want to say in addition to being no cost to the state or the taxpayers, there's also no cost to the general members of the utilities. It's not spread across them. It's self-funding. It's a win-win. You know, being from the West Slope, I looked at my surrounding states to see who had similar programs that Colorado was disadvantaged. Arizona, New Mexico, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Nebraska all have something similar, and then Utah has something even more aggressive where they give $20 million in subsidies to accomplish the same thing. Again, broad support, including Economic Development Council of Colorado, Colorado Association of Realtors, Colorado Competitive Council, Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, on and on and on, Jeffco, Metro, Chamber, virtually every business entity around the state supports this good bill. Vote yes. Thank you.
Representative Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with all due respect to my colleagues, I was a no, and the reason why I am a no is because once you start giving those one incentive versus another, who is in, who's out, incentives just don't work because they always will bite you in the end. So I was a no, and I will vote no on the bill. Sorry.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleague from Weld County. One of the unique parts about this bill also is that it actually is possible to provide incentives to bring in new businesses without actually having to cost share at all. And the reason for that is that utilities work different than taxes, for example. In a utility situation, a lot of the costs that you're paying are fixed costs for infrastructure. That infrastructure exists and it costs a certain amount of money no matter whether you've got 5 customers using it or 10 customers using it. So when you bring in new customers, you actually lower the shared cost of infrastructure for everyone else. So this is a unique opportunity where literally we can incentivize bringing in new customers and retaining customers while also holding or lowering costs for everyone else around, which is what I like to call a win-win, and I'd ask for a yes vote.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1271. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. That is close, but the ayes have it. House Bill 1271 passes. 1272, sorry. Representative Garnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice job. I move that the committee rise and report.
Seeing no objection, the House will rise and report.
House will come to order. Mr. Randall, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your committee will beg to report as under consideration following test bills being the second reading. There will explain recommendations thereon. House Bill 1152 is amended. House Bill 1181 is amended. House Bill 1258 is amended. House Bill 1271 is amended. House Bill 1280 is amended. House Bill 1283 is amended. House Bill 1296. House Bill 1307. House Bill 1335 is amended. Passed second or gross place count of 30 and found passage. House Bill 1260. House Bill 1263. House Bill 1279. House Bill 1286 laid over until April 11, 2018, retaining the place on the calendar. House Bill 1007, House Bill 1011, House Bill 1209 related over until April 13, 2018, retaining the place on the calendar. House Bill 1231 referred to the Committee on Appropriations. As amended.
All right. There are no amendments at the desk. Representative Bridges. All right, members, you have heard the motion. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Beckman, Escar, Garnett, Jackson, Liston, Thurlow, and Willett. All right, please close the machine. With 54 yes votes, 11 no votes, a report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Minority Leader Neville and Assistant Minority Leader West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
A moment of personal privilege is granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'm asking for a moment of personal privilege today to address what happened here this morning. There was a process issue with this resolution. We had the assurances from multiple members that the vote would be a voice vote, and that obviously didn't happen. And what that did was not allow our members the ability to explain why they were against the points in the resolution. So I rise today to bring up some of those. First off, had we known there would be a recorded vote, I would have ran amendments on the resolutions to address the Worker Paycheck Fairness Act, which I think would bring true paycheck fairness to all employees in the state of Colorado and the nation. This resolution had multiple issues. It addressed specifically a federal bill for trial lawyers, and I don't want to bring DC-style politics to Colorado. It would address a federal bill that will hurt women, will hurt families by inviting predatory trial lawyers to the table, making Colorado less affordable. I want to give you a quote from a working mother of 4. Flexibility is a crucial component of my job. Sick days, doctor appointments, and snow days when school and daycare are closed all take time away from work. There are also accommodations such as teleworking and maternity leave. The value of these benefits and my use of them is reflected in the salary I negotiated to receive. The Paycheck Fairness Act would restrict the availability of such personalized, flexible work arrangements. I think those are some of the points that we would have made at the well had we known there was going to be a recorded vote, and that's why I rise today. Thank you.
Assistant Minority Leader West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, we've had some difficult conversations this session about how we treat each other and the importance of our word, and our word being our bond. So in that spirit, we had conversations with leadership this morning, and that guided our thinking and strategy in terms of how we approach the resolution. In the interest of knowing all of the work that we had to do on the calendar this morning, that also entered into our thinking. But when we add a federal statute, the Paycheck Fairness Act, to a resolution, which I would venture to say there probably are not many folks in the room that have read the federal Paycheck Fairness Act. To include that in a resolution, and then to say it would be a voice vote and then to do a recorded vote, certainly I have a problem with. I respect the fact that there may have been a miscommunication. I accept the apologies of those who have offered them to us, but wanted to make sure that our leadership was on record, making it clear as to why we took the action and approached the resolution in the way that we did. I'm sure that there are members on our side who would have liked to have offered amendments and provided thoughtful comments about the resolution. And let me just say, as a personal matter, as a father to 3 daughters, I take equal pay issues very, very seriously. I have a daughter in the workforce. I have a daughter that will enter the workforce in 2 years. And I understand and embrace this issue with everything that I have. But that's not the way it went down this morning, and that's unfortunate. So, Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity for us to provide these comments to the body. Members, thank you for your time.
Further announcements and introductions. Representative Janal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have 2 announcements. One is, members, let's welcome Christian Core Academy from Fort Collins. They have been in the gallery watching us, but I'm not sure if they're still there, but I just wanted to make sure that they had a shout out. So let's give a round of applause to Christian Core Academy out of Fort Collins. And lastly, Health, Insurance, and Environment will meet immediately down in room 107. Thank you.
Welcome to the Capitol. Further announcements or introductions? Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and those of you who are interested in the work of the Joint Budget Committee. The calendar today shows that we're meeting today at 2. We are not. The Joint Budget Committee is not meeting today at 2. And those of you interested in the conference committee for the long bill and the bills that are orbiting with the long bill, that conference committee, those conference committees have been scheduled for tomorrow afternoon at 1:30. Thank you.
Further announcements or introductions? Representative Kraftharp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Business Affairs and Labor Committee will have 4 bills up today. House Bill 1214, House Bill 1350, which is a really good bill, Senate Bill 178, and House Bill 1342. See you at 1:30.
Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've lost my glasses, so this is difficult. But the Colorado Society of Eye Physicians and Surgeons, help. I was kidding.
We have lots of glasses.
Yes, Colorado Society of Eye Physicians and Surgeons will be here April 12th from 5:30 to 7:30. It's their annual legislative reception at the University Club, and they will have eye exams available. And if you would RSVP to Chet Seward, I'm guessing everybody has this on their desk, or we will put one on your desk tomorrow, so you'll have his RSVP. So April 12th, 5:30 to 7:30, University Club.
Further announcements and introductions. Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a reminder, Judiciary Committee will be meeting immediately upon adjournment. See you downstairs.
All right. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Public Health Care and Human Services. We'll be meeting today at 1:30. We've got 6 bills up plus a brief presentation from national experts on the Safe Families program. So please be there promptly at 1:30. We're going to get started as quickly as possible so we can get through a very ambitious calendar. And thanks to all you members for all the work that you're doing relating to the committee. Next up on Wednesday, 3 p.m.,
anyone is invited to come see Traverse. This is a nationally recognized organization that's making technology work in our child welfare system. It's unrelated to any specific committee, but please, all of you join me in one of the House Committee basements. We will have snacks and refreshments available, as well as opportunity to talk to some technological experts who are helping our kids.
Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, members of Appropriations, and those of you who might have bills in appropriations might want to listen to this announcement. We are having appropriations tomorrow morning, LSBA at 8 o'clock. So if you're a member of appropriations, be sure you're there. And these are the bills that we will be hearing in appropriations. House Bill 1200, House Bill 1285, Senate Bill 68, Senate Bill 207, House Bill 1176, House Bill 1301, Senate Bill 33, Senate Bill 108, Senate Bill 132, Senate Bill 141, Senate Bill 143, House Bill 1019, House Bill 1341, House Bill 1002, House Bill 1189, and House Bill 1179. And I will tell you there may be one or two additional bills that are added before we adjourn the House for the day today. If we do, we will contact sponsors directly to let you know. But we're trying to move bills as quickly as we can through the calendar, and I apologize for the short notice, but we're moving faster because we're getting towards the end of the session. So I appreciate your patience. Thank you, members, and thank you, Madam Speaker.
All right, Representative Herod. And Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, reminder that this week is National Library Week, April 8th through April 14th. Invite members to come down during announcements and talk about why libraries mean so much to them. Also, please, on social media, hashtag National Library Week and hashtag What's in it for you.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, and members, I think I mentioned last year, growing up, my mother was a librarian and a sometime professor of library science, and learning how to ask a lot of questions and try to run down answers, I think put me in pretty good shape for being here. But I just wanted to make 3 points about the role of libraries in our age today. A library used to be the place where you would go to get the answer before we all had these in our pocket. And even though most of us now have more than the Library of Alexandria at our fingertips, not everybody does. So libraries remain the place where people can go and get internet and get online where they may not have it at home. I think in addition, libraries are where you can find librarians who are people who are trained to vet different sources. And I think in this age when we're realizing that some sources of information online are suspect, that actually matters more and not less. And 3, and most basically, a library is a safe space, and not all kids in Colorado necessarily have a safe place to go after school or on the weekend or in the summer. So I think it matters for that reason too. Thank you.
Thank you, members. All right. Further announcements or introductions? Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to give a quick shout out to the kids from Netherland Elementary who I think were just here and I missed them. But thanks for making it all the way down from the mountains to your state's capital. And with that, I move that the House stand in recess until 1 o'clock today.
All right, seeing an objection, the House will stand in recess until 1 p.m. today. And members, for the women who want to support equal pay, there is going to be a picture that's taken by the WOW. So with that, the House will stand in recess. So men and women